may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, y'all know the drill. We are going to be talking about the best fantasy format you can ever play, Dynasty Fantasy Football, and we are going to continue to cover the best wide receiver draft class that we have ever seen. And I know a lot of people always want to go out there and make those hot takes, but guys, if you look at this 2020 class in its entirety, the wide receiver position is ridiculous. There's a reason so many of these players were drafted in the top 60 of the NFL draft in 2020. And today we are going to talk about Laviska Shenault. The reason we chose Laviska Shenault is, as always, y'all went down to the comment section and y'all told me this is who you wanted to hear. I mean, you wanted me to come out here and talk about whether I thought that Laviska Shenault was going to be a buy or a sell and what we could expect in 2021. Now, we are recording this going into week 11, so obviously if you're watching this a month out, you're going to have to take in mind whatever we've seen since then, because I'm going to be looking at weeks 1 through 10 in our sample size. Okay, but let's cover Laviska, and let's zoom out a little bit and look at what this wide receiver was coming out of Colorado this summer. And Laviska Shenault was selected with the 10th pick of the second round. He was selected at 21 years old, came out as a true junior. We all know by now that that is something that you really like to see on a prospect profile, just because generally the players who are going to translate their skill set to the NFL, they don't need that extra year to develop in college. I think this kind of makes intuitive sense that if you have a wide receiver coming out that's maybe 23, 24 years old, they should have already been able to prove their worth at the college level, where they could have had that draft stock way beforehand. And when they come into the NFL, generally we don't see them produce as well in their third year as they do at the very beginning in terms of their progression. Because when you see a 21-year-old rookie and say he goes out there, catches 40 balls, you can safely say going into his age 22 season, he should progress to the point where we could see him go out there and maybe jump from being a wide receiver 3 to a wide receiver 2. And then you can say the same thing going into year 3, possibly jumping from a wide receiver 2 to a wide receiver 1. So that's why you love to see the wide receivers who come in so young like Laviska Shenault did. And I know y'all are probably running to his combine stats to see what we have going on right now in terms of his athletic profile. And guys, he was actually suffering an injury at the NFL Combine, very similar to what we saw with Ronald Jones way back in 2018. So with Laviska, you cannot look at that overall athletic profile that you would find from his combine numbers. You actually really just have to look at what we saw at Colorado, where he was graded as one of the fastest players in the entire country. A lot of people said that he was going to be testing very similar to Julio Jones going into the NFL Combine. Now, I know it's very easy to say that, very hard to live up to that, but it's important to recognize that was even in the discussion for Laviska Shenault this offseason. Now, let's transition to what he's been able to accomplish in 2020, and let's try to look at this through a lens. Now, y'all know with Laviska Shenault, one of the reasons that a lot of people liked him in Dynasty Fantasy Football is he was actually a multi-weapon player. He was not just going to be a wide receiver that was playing on the boundary. We know that he was used in the Wildcat formation a good amount at Colorado, so we are going to be able to expect him to be used all over the football field, which is what we've seen the Jacksonville Jaguars try to prioritize this season. And if we look at his stats, he's been averaging a little over 8 yards per target. He's been averaging a little over 40 receiving yards a game and 6 rushing yards a game. Now, the rushing yards a game, I think, are actually important in the case of Laviska Shenault, because it really speaks to the fact that he is that elite level athlete where we didn't necessarily have that clarity at the NFL Combine. So I think it's important to see that the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing everything that they can to try to creatively get Laviska Shenault in this team's game plan. And now let's zoom out a little bit, because I know these numbers only mean so much when they're coming out of my mouth. Let's run a filter real quick, do some research on how many players in the NFL since the year 2000, so the past 2 decades, have been able to average 8 yards per target, average over 40 receiving yards a game, and over 6 rushing yards a game in their rookie season. And we have 5 players. We have Laviska Shenault, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Percy Harvin, and Alvin Kamara. So this is clearly a list of great gadget players or full-time players in their NFL offenses that would be extremely exciting to have in our Dynasty Fantasy Football rosters right now. I mean, we can safely say that we saw Deebo Samuel's value drastically increase from year 1 to year 2. We saw the same thing from DJ Moore. We saw the same thing from Alvin Kamara in a great way. Percy Harvin, I was not playing Dynasty Fantasy Football way back then, so I'm going to keep my lips closed on that. I don't want to speak out of my ass. And now let's look at what we could expect from the Jacksonville Jaguars situation in 2021, where they have a lot of their secondary wide receivers coming to the end of their NFL contracts, where I think that we could see some turnover at the wide receiver position in Jacksonville. The two guys that we know are going to be there and are going to have massive roles on this offense are going to be both DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault. Both of these players have proved great things on their rookie deals. And at the top of that, they were recently drafted, where there's no concern about them moving off the roster anytime soon. But the problem here is, what is the quarterback situation going to look like? Clearly, we are not excited about either option that are currently on the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Now, if we try to go out there and evaluate what they are going to be looking at in 2021, earlier this season, it was honestly looking a little bit pessimistic just because they were actually going out there and winning week 1 where everybody thought that they were going to get crushed. They were competitive in a few games after that. So we were looking at this team maybe going out there and putting up a 6-10 season. Since week 1, though, I mean, they have lost 8 games straight. They are currently the second worst team in the entire NFL. So I think that we can end up seeing the Jacksonville Jaguars land a quarterback like Justin Fields, especially knowing that their NFL schedule is not getting better anytime soon. Hopefully, for the case of Laviska Shenault, we end up seeing the Jacksonville Jaguars just completely lose the rest of their games, and then maybe we see the New York Jets steal a game against an opponent. Like I said, we are viewing all of this through a lens of range of outcomes, and it is in the range of outcomes for Laviska Shenault to either have Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback in 2021, where if that's the case, I think we can be extremely bullish on this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. Or worst case scenario, I think they're looking at a quarterback like Justin Fields, because I think it's going to be very hard to project this team to win any games anytime soon. Now, please go down to the comments. Let me know what price you would be willing to buy and sell Laviska Shenault at. I think that he's going to be in a very similar range for me that we have a Michael Pittman, where if I can go and trade my 2021 first to put him on my roster right now, I'm 100% going to sign up for that unless I'm one of the worst teams in the Dynasty League. But if you're asking me to trade my first, second, and third, my entire draft class, that's when I'm going to have to back out. That's when I'm going to have to say, you know what, you're asking too much. I'd rather just use these picks in other ways. But with Laviska Shenault, overall, I think that we are going to have to label him as a buy with where his current Dynasty price is, just knowing that some people don't really want to put their respect on Laviska Shenault because we've seen these other wide receivers like CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy, Chase Claypool, T. Higgins. I mean, so many of these guys are breaking out to such a great extent where people don't want to put the respect on Laviska Shenault's rookie season that he really deserves. So here, I think we are going to have to label pretty much Laviska Shenault as our 10th rookie wide receiver buy. Currently, I just think that this class is truly going to take over and completely dominate the NFL, and Laviska Shenault is going to be a part of that. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, please go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. It really helps us out, and let me know what player you want to see on our next video.